Welcome to another summer barn burner. Yes, we're stretching out, and that means more great long-form chats with great friends from the Calgary area and the sports community. A reminder, this program brought to you by Bet365. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365 with those huge range of markets to wager on. Play responsibly, must be 19 or older. Let's welcome to the program, athletic writer, former short-time Calgarian, Ottawayan or something. I don't know what it's called.
Close enough.
Podcaster and recently added to his plaque, author. It is Julian McKenzie. Sir, how are you?
Doing very well, Pinder. It is a pleasure and an honor to see you again, my brother.
Well,
I missed you, man.
No, I don't know.
I missed a lot of people in this market, but I definitely miss you.
I'm good pals with James Myrtle, who I don't know if he's going to call your boss or, but he was very instrumental in making the Athletic happen, and placing writers in markets and all that. And I was very excited to see you got the tap to come to Calgary a few years ago. But before that, how long have you been a journalist or a writer or a sports writer? Like, walk us through your journey before being an NHL beat writer, author, and podcast.
Damn, how long do you have?
Until September. Take your time.
Being in sports journalism is something I wanted to do since I was like 6 years old, and I'd play like sports video games and write stories off the games I played. And when I was growing up in Montreal, we have a thing in Quebec called CJEP, which is like in between
gap year, right?
Yeah, kind of like gap year 2 years. That was like the first time I'd ever taken like a journalism class, knowing that's what I fully wanted to do. And like I interned for a local community paper, the Montreal Community Contact, which served the Black community. And then from then on, like going to undergrad at Concordia, doing journalism school, did a year abroad at Syracuse for grad school. Came back, wrote for a bunch of different sites like Habs Eyes on the Prize. It's funny, like I wasn't a Habs fan again at that point, but like I knew like coming up in Montreal, like I wanted to come up and write about hockey. So that was just like a way in.
And that's a crazy fan base. Like if you want, you get your stuff read, write about the Habs.
That's it, right? I got lucky with that because when I was at Syracuse, I interned for the AHL team there at the time, the Crunch, and like one of the writers for that website was in town for a playoff series because they were playing against the St. John's Ice Caps. That was the old Canadiens affiliate. And like we just connected off of that. And then when I came back to Montreal, they were like, yeah, man, you should write for us. So that was like a way in. And then I did TV for like almost 3 years or over 3 years. I was like a weather guy for like 3 years.
No way.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I did not know you
didn't know that?
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Yeah. No. Yeah. I was
Jack. You now have to scour YouTube for Julian being like,
I was a weather
showers. We got a low pressure system.
Yeah. No. I was. So I did like a month at like the CBC after I got out of grad school, and I had interned with CTV Montreal for like 2 months a couple years earlier. And funny enough, our good friend Salim Valji, who now works here in now works here in Calgary, he was also at the CBC. He moved on to CTV and like got a job on the web desk. And I'm like, well, come on, man. Like I used to intern there. Like I'm sure there was something there. And like I went in the meeting with the news director, and I was like, yo, I'll do whatever you want me to do, man. And he's like, what about doing the weather? And he's like, okay, I'll do weather. But like I wasn't thinking it was gonna be serious. And then they put me in front of a green screen and we did a whole screen test. And they're like, all right, you're doing shifts over December, Christmas, and
when our main guy's on vacation.
Yeah. And like awesome. They started giving me shifts, and it moved up to like doing like eventual like news reporting every now and again. And they actually gave me sports stuff too. But yeah, I was doing that and freelancing for so many different places, like the Montreal Gazette, the Canadian Press, the Sporting News. And then in 2020, I got approached by the SDPN boys about potentially hosting a secret project. They wouldn't.
So this is the Steve Dangle Network for people that aren't familiar with the acronym. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and they wouldn't tell me what it was. And the night I was celebrating Salim moving to Calgary
to get the TSN gig to replace Jermaine.
Yeah, I get the phone call from Adam Wild, and he's like, "Hey, so we can tell you what it is. It's the Chris Johnston show." I'm like, oh shit! Like, all right, like I want to do it. It's gonna be awesome. And we thought we were gonna start it in like January 2021, and then there were some hijinks that kind of delayed us from that. But we eventually got off the ground later that year. But even around that time, there was so much other stuff going on. Like I got approached by The Athletic in January 2021 to be a translator for articles, because out in Montreal, like we used to have Arpin Basu and Marc-Antoine Godin, and we had a French vertical.
Yeah.
And those guys would write articles, particularly Marc-Antoine would, in French. And what would happen a lot is a lot of those articles in French, we translate them over to English. So they had me doing that for 2 months. And then they were like, all right, like we need an editor. And they thought of me for it. And that was my way in. And I was primarily editing. And then I told them I wanted to write. And I got an opportunity to write a little bit during the playoffs. And everyone thought, all right, like, well, the Canadiens and the Leafs play in the first round. Leafs are going to stomp them. We'll give you like a couple little articles. You're going to be all right. Series? And then they went on that run. Yeah. And then I got to cover that. And honestly, like if it wasn't for that run, my bosses don't think of me as like a viable person to take over a beat. And then the year after, there's talk about Calgary being open.
Haley Salvin was here, which was great, but she was great. Had her earmarked to do a lot of women's hockey, and there was none of that here in the sense that I think Toronto was going to be a hub. She was doing some desk work on networks on TV, and you can just feel like
she's a star.
Haley's not long for here. Like she's going to get sucked back to the major media center.
She's a star.
Yeah.
And then like the opportunity came late August, early September officially, and I was like, you know what? This is probably the right move for me. And then I came here in September 2022 and covered the Flames for 2 years and was still doing CJ show, and I'm still doing CJ show.
Yeah.
And then 24, I should say, I guess August 2024, the opportunity came for me to move to Ottawa to cover the Sens, and I took it. It was just an opportunity for me to be closer to home and do something a little bit different. And yeah, we're in the present day now, and I've there's like a Cole's notes of everything I've done so far, but like it's a really long journey, man.
It's fun though. Like I don't have any of the same stuff, but there's a lot of similarities where it's like I just happened to be here, and then this crazy thing happened, and the next thing you know, like for me, the crack I got was I was doing play-by-play for the Abbotsford Heat, the Flames farm team, which is like whatever. I mean, the really hardcore prospect nerds care, and we had like Boma, Berchi, and Brody, the 3 Bs. They're all like guys like, okay, these can be players, especially Sven because he was the first rounder. But the lockout happened in 12-13, and for half a year there was no Flames. So now you got like Bob Hartley watching practice, and it's like, can we get you on the radio station regularly to talk about this? Because there's no Flames to talk about. And so it's all these weird little coincidences. And I don't get the Abbotsford Heat job if I don't bump into Ryan Walter at a coaching conference that I was helping a buddy with. So, but like you see the similarities in this business. You're not just like, hey, I'm from here, I'm going to apply here, I work here. There's only so many media jobs around, especially when you're like, I want to do sports. Like all the jobs are full. There's no shortage of interest in these.
There's a lot.
You got to follow a weird path and end up in places you didn't expect to be, like Calgary.
Like Calgary of all places, right? Like, and I got super lucky here with like the people who I already knew with like Solemn and the community of people who cover the Flames, getting to know them too. But like I also have family members here. Like I got like an aunt and a couple cousins who live here too, and getting to reconnect with them was also really cool. I was really lucky during the 2 years I was here, man. I think like I got to do a lot of cool stories. I got to talk to a lot of cool people. I got to meet a lot of cool people. I look back at that as like a really cool time in my life. It was really brief, but like it was really awesome.
What were your expectations of Calgary, and like what was way off base from like a Montreal or thinking of Calgary? Because like you hear the way Albertans talk about Quebec, and then I can only imagine the flip in Montreal where it's like this incredibly old historic cultural city. You're like, oh, those rednecks out there. Like, like I'm sure there's a little bit of truth behind some of these stereotypes, but at the same time, I feel like there would have been some eye-opening moments where you're like, I didn't know this was Calgary.
Seriously, like I thought like my anticipation was like I'd be going into like a metropolitan hub surrounded by, I guess, redneck country. And while I guess there might be some truth to that, I didn't expect to see the diversity in Calgary and how up and coming it is, and all the young people who are moving from different parts of the country to make the city great. I didn't expect the food scene to be as dope. Like there's so many great restaurants here that like that I've gotten to enjoy during the time I was here. I really enjoy Calgary as like a food city. I think obviously in terms of like a hockey standpoint too, like I knew there was going to be a difference in terms of the fan base, right? Like in Montreal, obviously, like they associate the Canadians as like religion.
Totally.
It's like
it's closer to church than sport.
Exactly. Like you go to the Bell Center, you go to a game, it's as near, if you're not religious, that's like as near religious of an experience as you could have.
Yeah.
And in Calgary, I think the passion is there with fans. It's just what I wasn't really familiar with was like maybe some of the scars they had endured from maybe some of the previous teams
they had. Decades.
Yeah,
Since
they had a
89.
lot of bad teams, but like what was super cool was going to the Dome and appreciating like the space and appreciating fans when the team was good and when they have hope, and how loyal they are to their guys and how they really like guys who give a damn here and are like blue collar and are about the city and want to stick around. And like I came to appreciate Flames fans for having that passion, and I think they're as passionate as any fan base in the league, really. Like I really think with the way they care about their players, the way they care about their teams, and maybe some of the guys, like I'll see like Flames Nation post a couple guys, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I would give that much of a damn about Chuck Kobasu, but like Chuck Kobasu meant so much to this damn city. I get it. But like
That's a big year.
It was really cool to see Flames fans. It was cool to be in a completely different space from what I was used to most of my life, just being around Canadiens fans. And I know through CJ's show, like I've opened myself up to Leafs fans and exposing myself to that too. But it was cool to be in a different, that was like my first time primarily being in a space where I don't have to think about Canadiens fans. I'm thinking about a completely different fan base and getting to know their history.
So you would have arrived coming off like a high water mark of the last decade.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 decades.
Yeah.
So the Flames and Oilers have the second rounder. You know, Johnny wins game 7 against the Stars in round 1.
Yeah.
That's the offseason. You come in and you're like, oh, like I don't know when you knew you were coming, but you probably had an eye on it during the playoffs, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I think that whole year leading up to the playoffs, I remember being really high on the Flames. I remember thinking like the stars they had up front with like Lindholm, Johnny, Matthew Tkachuk.
That line was insane.
That line was absolutely insane. Didn't like Johnny finish like 4th in like Hart Trophy voting that year too?
Yeah, he had 115 points, and they had all of them got 40 goals, I think, and 2 of them hit 100 points. It was the best line in the league by a mile.
Absolutely,
like, it wasn't just offense; you could play him all situations, and you're like, Sutter has fixed the Flames.
Yeah,
and then you get to town, and it's like post-apocalyptic rubble everywhere because Johnny's left, Tkachuk's traded out. And like you went from, you know, the peak of an era, or at least in a life cycle of the team, to like, oh boy, like
I don't know.
People still think they're going to be good, but this is a very new team.
Absolutely, and like I don't know if it was like fully post-apocalyptic rubble yet. I think
it wasn't, because you're right. People had them like, I think Frank had them winning the West or something.
Yeah,
they were still like, oh, they made changes, but they're still good. Yeah.
Like they made like some crazy changes. I think a lot of people thought that the Flames won that Huberdeau-Tkachuk trade.
That was the reaction immediately. It's like you got a 115-point guy back. You also got a top pair defenseman that was, I think, like
McKenzie Weegar's
very underrated. And the people, like the analyst community, are like, this guy's very good.
100%.
Like, Ekblad's better when he's with him than anyone else. Like he's a good player. Mm-hmm. And you got a first, which is it's 3 years down the road, but who knows where Florida is in 3 years? That could be a really high pick.
A prospect out of that too.
Yeah, they got Cole Schwindt.
Yeah.
But spoiler alert, the pick wasn't good. It was the last pick of the first round. Classic Flames.
But like at the time, it was like a lot of people were looking at that as like a really good trade for the Flames. But also like one thing I looked at was that trade, like thinking of if I was going to get that opportunity to go to Calgary and cover the team, I was like, I want to do a story about that trade.
Right.
And at that story I wrote about basically talking to Brad Treliving, Bill Zito, and all the players involved in that swap. Like that, I still consider one of the best stories I've ever written. Yeah. Like that was really cool.
That put you on the map here right away.
I think so. Like I really appreciate everyone involved in that story for giving me the time of day. I remember talking to Bill Zito on the phone, and then Scott Oak nearly interrupted my interview by like just like randomly swearing at me for no reason. He made
Scott,
yeah,
of all guys,
yeah, of all people. He just came up to me. He was like trying to joke around. I'm like, dog, I'm like on the phone.
I'm doing it.
What are you doing? Like, stop. He made it up to me. He got me a Hockey Night in Canada towel before I left.
That's a fair.
He was very nice. But like that story was like really cool to cover, and everyone involved in that. Like at that time, like the regular season hadn't started yet, so like it wasn't like we could make this big judgment over the trade. And even a couple months in, like before they had even gone to Florida in November for the first time to play against each other, like I still felt like the jury was still out. Like Huberdeau still needed a little bit of time to adjust.
Yeah, and Darryl was on the training table. I don't know, was you taking a dump? Like you're just like, oh
yeah, that comment was so wild.
And like at the time,
Darryl Sutter is so interesting, man.
Yeah. at the time we kind of all just like shrugged it off, like, oh, that's Darryl. But in hindsight, you're like, oh, that was a red flag.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to work under him.
Yeah, it was.
Like, Huberdeau was not going to be the player that you thought you were getting if Darryl was coaching.
Like, just because I know we wrote about it after the fact with The Athletic. I think it was just because they started so well. Like, I think it might have been like their best start in franchise history, the Flames.
Okay.
And like they played really well, and they had this game, I think, against Pittsburgh, where they won that game, but like they had like 20, they allowed 20 shots like in one of those periods. And like Darryl's like, well, you guys think you guys are so good, but like you guys allowed all those shots. Like what's going on? And I'm pretty sure in that room, like all those guys are probably looking around and be like, really? Like, come on, man. Like, we're playing really well. And like,
Sid.
And like, yeah, come on. Like, you're gonna give us crap. Like,
yeah.
I thought I don't have any issues with Darryl. I don't want to come across as like someone who's
something was wrong that year. And I think he's a Hall of Fame coach.
Something was off with
and
that,
I think he's a great coach.
Yeah.
That was not a good year for Darryl.
No, I think with the way they changed stuff around with some of the players at the top who might not have been used to Darryl's style.
Yeah.
I think there was very clearly some clashes between, you know, some of the guys up top and Darryl. It is what it is. Right?
Clearly,
like,
it was
guys
clear.
Who were there. They're not used to the coach. Like,
Nazem's brand new, and he was an all-star. But by the end of the year, you're like, Nazem and the coach are not getting along.
No, and I don't think it was just
Huberdeau's not fitting with the coach.
No,
Uyghur had a really rough first 3 months, but then became himself. I thought sort of closer to Christmas. It was an interesting year.
Remember Jacob Peltier too?
Yeah, it was later in the year. Like, oh, yeah, what number is he? Like, they had the family. Like, we're trying to go watch his debut. Like, when are you putting him in? There was the Matthew Phillips call-up thing that got weird.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff. Stunned. You're just like, oh, this group there's some issues behind the scenes.
I was stunned with how people reacted to the Peltier thing. I took that comment of Sutter saying, what number is he, as like, that's just Darryl being Darryl. Like, just what I was used to of him at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right, like, he's not going to give the kid, not to say he didn't give him a fair shake, but he's not going to like throw flowers at him.
Especially with young players. It's always been the way Darryl's been.
And what I was surprised about was how people all around the hockey community reacted and were like, whoa, this is not what you should be doing. Like, I think Merrick had said stuff too. Like, there were people in and around the hockey community, people who talk about hockey for a living.
Outside of Calgary.
Outside of Calgary, who are like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And what was also surprising too was that I remember like vividly days after, like Sutter would have these pressers with us and he would find a way to mention Peltier and be like, well, that's what I was trying to say about him as the kid. He clearly realized that like he probably shouldn't have said it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if he had just said, you know, man, I wish we were able to give him more time because there were so many power plays and it was like a game against Tampa and there were so many like special teams opportunities for both ways. So that cut into a lot of Jacob Peltier's ice time.
Sure.
And that's why he didn't play that much in that debut. And all Darryl had to say was, well, he only played like a couple minutes. Like, we didn't really get that much out of him because of all the power play and penalty kill that was going on. But, you know, hey, like he's in the league, like good for him. We all would have moved on. If he just treated that like a normal situation, we all would have been fine. But like that ended up being like a point of contention. Like Huberdeau went on radio months after that and was like, yeah, he didn't like that. Like that was a point too.
And it was the buildup that he created too, because Peltier was called up by Treliving and it's like, he wouldn't start him. I remember doing a post game with Rhett. And they were in, I think, St. Louis and Chicago back-to-back nights, middle of like dark, cold dog days of winter.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is a veteran team. This is a bad team. Yeah. Like, this is one of those games where you think you're better than your opponent, and you are. But that was a perfect spot to put a young kid in, get the debut out of the way, bring some energy to the lineup.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, why isn't Peltier getting look? Like, there's a back-to-back, if I recall. There's a bad team. Like, there was all kinds of opportunities to do it. And so now, because you don't put Peltier in for this extended amount of time and everyone's waiting for the debut, you've made it an issue it didn't need to be.
Yeah.
And now when he does play, you ask, he's like, oh, what number? How much ice time?
Yeah.
And again, I think Darryl's a great coach. That season, there was a lot of things he should have handled differently. Huberdeau, him. You know, the Phillips one's a different discussion a bit because I just don't think Darryl ever thought he was a player, and he turns out to be right at the NHL level, but didn't mean you could have at least given Craig a little more info before he has to make a decision on a contract the next summer.
I think with the Matthew Phillips thing, well, I think Darryl ended up being right. I think if the team at least gave him some kind of fairer shake
Yeah.
and done their due diligence. Thank God for their case, it didn't work out for him in Washington, and now he's an AHL player. Because could you imagine if he found a way to make it work at the NHL level and you're like, well, geez, like
it's Marty St. Louis 2.0 or something, right?
The thing with Matty Phillips too is like he's a great AHL player, a great AHL scorer. It's just he needed to find ways to make himself more of a presence at the NHL level. Like I'm not saying like Johnny Gaudreau is obviously like he was a little bit taller than Matthew Phillips, but like the thing about him is that he scored goals. He was elusive. He was like sometimes the fastest player on the ice. He did dynamic things on the ice that made him a game changer, a difference maker. And Matty Phillips at that time didn't have that. And I definitely think I'm with you. Like I think Darryl definitely looked at a player like Matthew Phillips and thought like, well, if he's going up against bigger dudes like Alexander Ovechkin, he's lunch.
Yeah.
Like he definitely thought that. And it was also really fascinating to see fans have that viewpoint where it's like, man, we want to see this kid play. This is a local guy. He's producing so much in the AHL. Why is he not getting that fair shake? That was a really fascinating story to be around and see again as a new guy who has like no idea, shouldn't say no idea, but like did not have any real perspective or attachment to some of the younger players and prospects
first
in the
rounders
system.
or local guys lighting up lower levels. And then also everyone had this was like chapter 3 of Darryl. It felt like there was like Darryl, the coach that saved the team, 304 and beyond. Darryl that made himself the GM, and you're like, that didn't go so well. And then Darryl returned. So everyone was familiar with Darryl and had Darryl exposure, whereas like it's the first time you're in press conferences, you're like, oh, this is this can get prickly.
I remember
contentious sometimes.
I remember like the first month I was there,
before a game, I think I asked him who is he starting in net, and then he like he looked at me, he's like, yeah, you're new here, so you don't know the rule, but we don't do that over here.
I'm not telling.
I'm not telling. And it, like he went about that as nicely as he could have. I figured he probably could have. I thought that whole year, maybe there were points I could have asked better questions sometimes, but also I feel like he probably could have roasted me, and he just didn't. Yeah. I thought we were fine. Can I tell my favorite Darryl Sutter story?
Please.
This was before Michael Backlund was playing his like 900th career game. This is like late in the season.
Yeah.
And we're talking with him in the scrum, and he's telling us this story about how when he was here with the Flames, like obviously like 07, 08, whatever.
Yeah.
And he wore number 60, I think was his first number here.
Backlund. Okay.
Backlund, yeah.
Yeah.
And he had told us this story about how he wanted to switch his number, but he went to Darryl and he was like, whatever you do, man, like, please don't give me number 11. Like, please don't give me that number. And sure enough, he gets number 11. Like, that's the number he gets. And like, for whatever reason, like he tells that story.
Darryl does on a game day.
So no, Darryl didn't tell it. Michael did.
Oh, thank you.
Michael, so I'll get to Darryl in a second.
Okay.
So Michael tells that story, but for whatever reason, we never got like why Darryl wanted to give him that number. And like another guy in the room, like I just remember going to him like, so why did Darryl give him 11? And he's like, yeah, he wanted him to look taller. He wanted to have the two numbers there. Here's the best part of the story. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like you would get that. I leave the locker room. I stand outside the locker room, and Darryl is right there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I might as well go to Darryl. I might as well ask.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, so we heard the story from Michael Backlund about how he got number 11, and I heard that I'm like, why did you give him number 11? Like, what was the deal? Darryl just looks at me, and he just starts doing this. He starts waving his hands up and down, and I'm like, why is he waving his hands up and down? You tried to make him look taller, and he's like, yep. And I was just like, like what is
That's
this?
so next level.
Yo, I think I wrote that in a story about Backlund. So like that's not like breaking news, but like definitely the waving arms up and down. I was just like, are you what?
Like, has any coach ever thought about numbers for?
I tell people that story all the time, and they look at me like, are you serious?
It sounds like a fake story.
It is a real story.
Yeah.
That happened. That's my favorite Darryl Sutter story of all time. I thought him as a guy, dude, the arms. I swear on my life. Awesome. That happened. But no, I thought as a coach, I get why he was beloved in the city.
Yeah.
It's just it didn't work with that group. And there was just so many different points that just kind of highlighted the fact that like it just didn't work with this group.
I agree. And it's funny because the year before it did. And
it did.
It was a new group. It was Nazem was new, Uyghur was new, Huberdeau was new. You started to have these kids coming up from the A that fans were excited to see, but Darryl might not have been.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that different of a group, but it was different enough in the key roles. And you're like, you could tell mid-season it was this group that, Frank and others had said, I think they're better than Edmonton. They're going to get revenge this year. We're going to get another Battle of Alberta. They're going to come out of the West. I see them as a Final Four team. Some team are picking them. Some writers picking them to win the Cup. Because they did add good players. Like Now's a good player. Uyghur, a good player. Huberdeau was 115 points, highest scoring left winger of all time. Like what the fuck?
Most assists by a left winger in season. Like he was
a first, and you're like, geez, like this is quite the reload by Treliving here.
I think I still think the play style here just doesn't fit Huberdeau, but also you realize like the East-West thing compared to what guys are like now, where like you want guys running up and downhill.
They've turned him into a different player. Like he was functional last year, but he definitely was not a 115-point guy. But he was lost for a while there. And so mid-season, you're like, this thing is dangerously close to like it's circling around the toilet. You might lose your car keys here. Like this is danger. And then down the stretch, they had some dog performances against bad teams, like a game in Chicago the last 2 weeks of the year. Nazem had 3 turnovers on one shift, and I feel bad for Nazem because he's been a very good Flame. But like that night, you can't bleach from your memory. It was so bad because this team with all these expectations still had a chance, and they drop another one to a bad team. And at that point, somewhere along the line, we've got the Treliving Darryl sort of friction starting to surface. Darryl got his extension at the beginning of the year. We're led to believe that Treliving was offered one, but it declined. And now you can see the balance of power shifting where like Tree calls up a guy, Darryl doesn't play him. And it's like, oh shit. Like this is a dysfunctional organization right now.
I don't know if I was going to go so far as to be like dysfunctional, but there was definitely some discord. It felt like, at least from the outside perspective, like there was definitely some kind of discord between Darryl and Tree. Even the way Tree left the organization, right? Like he just kind of says, you know what, like I'm out of here. I'm good.
Just threw the keys and walked.
And just kind of leaves. And you're just kind of like, well, that's very strange. And even the way like it, maybe I'm misremembering, but it felt like the way it was announced, it wasn't, there were reasons to provide more questions about why Brad Treliving said, you know what, enough's enough. I'm getting out of here. I'm hopping out of here. Yeah. It was just like a really strange, it felt like in a weird way, from an outsider's perspective, it's like, okay, the organization's picking Darryl over Brad Treliving, which like just that doesn't typically happen with like a coach and a GM, but like that's what it felt like.
I don't think it felt like that. It's exactly what it was. And I think, the owner had a longstanding relationship with Darryl. The owner's most successful year ever was when Darryl took a team that had missed the playoffs 8 years in a row and went to the final. Like Darryl and the owner have a relationship. And I'm sure that, the GM likes Darryl, the coach, but the coach got an extension for the GM. That's backwards in this sport.
It's very backwards.
And so Treliving's gone, and Don Maloney comes in and says it's the Liam, the Leslie Nielsen Naked Gun scene where it's like nothing to see here, and it's the battleship with like fireworks going off and like in the background, and they're like, no, like it's still a good team, and like we're gonna do our exit interviews, and then after all the exit interviews, they fired Darryl before his extension kicks in. Like and you're like, yes, it was
so strange though, like. Because the AHL team was still in the playoffs at that point, and I would go to games at the Dome, and like Darryl Sutter's there
after being fired.
He's at the game, not even before. It was before he got fired. Okay, but we're all wondering, like, so is he staying? Is he not staying? It felt like it was very up in the air about whether or not he was going.
He was being audited. Yeah,
absolutely.
He had his extension, but they were still literally discussing, is he the coach of this group?
Yeah, but I think considering the players at the top and how they felt about him, like the writing was on the wall, and like you have Huberdeau signed for all these years, you have Kadri signed for all those years, and if they feel a way about Darryl Sutter, like we know the lifespan for coaches in this league, they're going to pick the players. And they saw what happened with them in their first year. They probably didn't play up the standard that they would have liked, and you can't afford for those signings to not go well. Yeah. So you have to think like, all right, you have to get somebody to unlock them. And if it can't be Darryl Sutter, someone else has to do it.
Buddies, what Barn Burner is a presentation of Bet365, best gaming partner in the whole wide world. Get that app in your phone. If you haven't got an account yet, set it up. Use the code NATION when you sign up. Be worth your while, and then get in on it. They got game props, player props, totals. What sport do you want? What are you looking for? It's all there. Get in the app. Get in the game. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, official partner of Barn Burner.
You never need a lawyer until you need a lawyer, and then you need McLeod Law. They are the Calgary law firm. Calgarians, people that understand how our city works. So no matter what your legal needs are, it's simple. McLeod-law.com or hit socials at McLeod Law LLP. Peter Klein, you know him as the personal injury guy. Well, he's also your long-term disability insurance claim guy. Make sure you check in with him if you've got an issue collecting for the benefits you've paid for. Shane King, a partner in the Litigation and Dispute Resolution Group. Employee rights, if you've been terminated, make sure you're being treated as the law requires. Shane, always using practical and easy language, no legal mumbo jumbo. It's the Calgary law firm, and the only one you need to know whenever you need a lawyer, it's McLeod Law.
There's a saying, it isn't bragging if it's true. So for Bonton Meat Market, when they say 24 consecutive years, Southern Alberta's Consumer's Choice Award winner for best meat and deli, it's not bragging if it's true. And it's true. Bonton Meat Market, 28 Crowfoot Circle in the Northwest. Was talking with Greg Keller the other day, and they are just pumping out the top quality. It's the standard is so high for what passes through that whether it's the meat or the salads, Greg Keller has that place humming. And if it's not AAA Alberta beef, if it's not the best free range chicken and all that, it doesn't get in there. And that makes things a little bit tough. Maybe if you're a supplier, so you better be the best, because if it's at Bonton, people know it's the best. And that's why we go there. And that's why for 24 straight years, they're that Consumer's Choice Award winner. Life is too short to eat bad meat. I say it all the time. 104 years under their belt. They're doing something right. They're doing it all right. It's Bonton Meat Market. They're our favorites. It's not even close. They'll be your favorites too. It's the summertime. Get something on your grill. Get some good Bonton on your grill. No regrets. 28 Crowfoot Circle in the Northwest.
Well, it's summer, and that means it's air conditioner season. Yes, we don't need that in the winter, but it does get hot here in Calgary in the summer. And here's the deal from our good friends at Crystal Waters right now. 10% off a brand new air conditioner and a year of free preventive maintenance. Crystal Waters is your crystal clear choice for all things residential plumbing, heating, cooling services. We're talking 23 years of experience and over 30,000 projects completed. It's your clear choice for sure. Here's how you get a hold of them. 403-219-4100. Head to their website, crystalclearcalgary.com. Crystal Waters Plumbing and Heating is your crystal clear choice for home comfort. Back to the show. So Ryan Huska comes in the next year, and it is now like the word rebuild is suddenly being used like 12, 14 months after you're in round 2, up 1-0 on the Oilers.
Was it used? It felt like the team tried to not use it, and it felt like fans were like, "We've been dying for this for years."
Yeah,
they've been dying for it.
Like the teams that were good here were good, but they never consecutively made the playoffs.
No,
and the bubble year they did, but they needed to win a little play-in series against Winnipeg first, and that was when Tkachuk sliced Scheifele's.
Yeah,
but it's just like even when they won the West, it was like Colorado beats them as an 8 seed. They're the one in the division. They lose to the Oilers. Like they couldn't string together a nice run of contention so much as they'd poke their head up and seem to be proven frauds in the postseason. And I'll say this about that group, even that 22 team that was very, very good, their best players weren't good against Edmonton. Hannafin and Anderson struggled in that series, the two young guys playing together. Tanev was hurt, which was huge.
That too.
But the top line wasn't that good.
Markstrom was also not great.
Markstrom was not good at all.
Down.
They allowed way too many chances, way too many breakaways. They weren't a Darryl-looking team in the postseason that year,
which was super strange because
it was like the role players. It was like Coleman and Backlund were their best players in that series,
which was so strange because
Mangiapane,
with the way that Darryl Sutter had his team play for most of that year, that's why so many people believed in the Calgary Flames to get over the hump.
Totally.
Like they had the offense at the top, but they were able to play well enough defensively with some of their other lines, and that was supposed to be their way through. I thought they were going to win that series against the Edmonton Oilers. I thought after that first game one, you're like, well, damn, that's completely different. But they're going to win it. And then all of a sudden, the Oilers just
throttle.
They throttle and they rip out the hearts. Like I'm sure, there are players, there are people, there are Flames fans for sure who wake up from nightmares of Connor McDavid scoring that OT winner and celebrating on their ice. Like, that would eat at me for decades.
I will say that series probably helped birth a lot of Florida Panther fans in the city the last 2 years.
Oh, God. Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but like that's also very true.
No, and look, rivalry is great. You got to see it at a good time. Like the Edmonton Calgary thing is, it's real. There isn't a like. I feel like Toronto Montreal is, but it isn't quite the same.
No.
You know, it's like different parts of the world in a sense, even though they're neighboring big cities. Like it's Upper Canada, Lower Canada, French.
Even
Canada,
then,
English
though,
Canada.
like
It's not close enough in my mind.
But even if it's not close enough, like Montreal, Toronto, there's like this dynamic that goes beyond them playing against each other where like Toronto feels like they're at the top of the world. They look down on everybody, and like a lot of businesses, a lot of cool things were in Montreal at one point. They end up going to Toronto.
Sure.
And yeah, there's like politics that step in the way of that. But like people in Montreal look at Toronto and say like, well, why do you think you're better than us?
Right.
Like, why is it that you guys get to hang out in English Canada and you think you're better than us because we speak French and we're bilingual and all that? Why is it whenever I watched CBC growing up when I was like 6 years old and like I want to watch Hockey Night in Canada, I have to watch the Toronto versus Ottawa, and I have to go to Radio Canada to watch Montreal versus whoever. There's like so many different things that lead into that rivalry that even if they are 5-6 hours apart on a drive, they will always have that tie. That being said, Calgary Edmonton, when I was there, and even a little before then, was the best rivalry in the league at that time because of what they experienced in the playoffs, because of the genuine animosity there, because of the star players at
fans
either
traveling,
end, the fans traveling, and any opportunity I got to cover a Calgary Edmonton game, I wanted to be there. I wanted to take that in. I wanted to do those drives to Edmonton and watch Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl at their arena, which I get is super loud, but like it was a cool experience to be a part of, but also see what it was like in the Dome and see Flames fans go up against the Oilers fans. Like it was really fascinating to see that dynamic of how much Oilers fans travel, but how much Oilers fans are here in Calgary.
It's crazy.
It's insane. It was so much more than I thought.
Yeah, if you're in Edmonton and you end up getting a white collar job, you've likely moved to Calgary. Yeah, like there are so many Edmonton transplants here, and I'm sure there's some the other way, but it's not even close.
No,
like, God, I feel like at times there's more kids wearing Oilers jersey at my kid's school than Flames, and yeah, McDavid's a part, but it's like transplants here. My dad's in those. We're from Edmonton,
but like going to bars during the playoffs. And they're packed with Oilers fans. And you see like ads at bars like directed towards Oilers fans, enticing them to come to your place. I'm like, this is very different. Yeah. Like, and I realized too, like old habits do die hard with some people. I remember like when they were in the final last year, like I had heard a story about some media member being offered the opportunity to go up to Edmonton and just cover it. And they were like, I'm not going there. I'm not going to cover the Oilers. Like, screw this. I know Solomon did for TSN, but also I get it too. Like, any opportunity to cover the Stanley Cup final in my eyes, as someone who's done it, even in the bubble, like you take that. That's something that like you add to your career.
Did you have to do the whole testing thing at that point? I'm trying to remember because the first Stanley Cup Edmonton bubble was like fully sealed. And then the next year, I think there was like 3,000 fans in Montreal for some games. And then like Tampa would be full. Yeah. It wasn't apples to apples, but we were coming out like, were there COVID protovcols to deal with players or not? Or was it still like Zoom meetings?
I think like, so at that point we were doing Zoom meetings in 21. We had to, whenever we had to go to games, we were wearing masks and stuff. Yeah. And they had everyone like apart. Like I got to go to like a couple games before the final. Like I was at the game where the Canadians beat the Winnipeg Jets. They swept them. And I was at the clinching game. I think Tyler Toffoli scored the winner in that game, actually. And like we're talking to him on Zoom. And everyone's just like a couple seats like apart from each other. But yeah, as like the playoffs go on, like slowly, like more and more fans are in the arena. But the craziest thing is like you leave the arena and all the fans are outside. I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if you remember this, but Quebec had a curfew during COVID. So like at 8 p.m. we had to be inside. And around the time they got to the final, the curfew got lifted. So, like, when they made the final, everyone was there. And on top of that, Arturi Lehkonen scores the goal that sends them to the final on Saint Jean-Baptiste Day, like their national holiday. Everybody in Montreal is outside. Everybody outside. So everyone just touching up each other, people holding up construction cones in the city, people riding around, cops riding around on horses trying to maintain the peace. It was as insane of a moment as you could see. And like, it was nuts. Yeah.
And then you got 3,000 people in a quiet building, and then you go to Tampa, and it's just like
it's like COVID.
Like COVID. What's that?
COVID?
Never heard of this.
It was Florida. I didn't travel for it, but like just like watching those games, just be like, these guys have no idea what the hell is going on.
They don't know.
They don't give a damn.
Then the second season you're in Calgary is the first of Ryan Huska.
Yes.
And that's when we sort of touched the R word, which is a delicate topic, but it was a year surrounded with a lot of drama with 7 free agents for Craig Conroy, the new GM, to inherit. Backlund, Zadorov, Toffoli, Lindholm. I'm going to keep going. I got it.
Tanev
and Hanifin.
Yeah.
And Oliver Shillington.
Too, yes.
Which was a sneaky, interesting, weird storyline as well, which in hindsight hasn't really turned out to be a thing, but was crazy at the time.
Yeah.
That was a weird year. They had a really slow start. It's Huska's first year. And then they dress up like guys making music on bottle hicks, like for the outdoor game.
Damn.
And you're like, this season is lost.
What
like they're in last place.
What is that comparison?
It's like Dex. Have you seen that music video? Like Dexy's Midnight Runners. They're all wearing like overalls. I'm like, the Flames come out to that. I'm like, oh my God, you can't win like this.
You think they go on the ice yelling, "Come on, Eileen"? Like, what is this?
I literally was like, this is coming, Eileen. I've seen this video. There's no way they're winning this game.
Come on, Eileen.
And I think they called up Zarian Pospisil right after, or one after another, and then they actually turned it around and went on a bit of a run. But that was a weird year because it was like, this team needs surgery. And there's all these guys ready to leave, and Zadorov's a headache in the room. You did re-up Backlund. You got Sharon Govich and a pick for Toffoli, but there was a lot of loose ends for Connie that first year. My God.
Yeah, that was such a weird time. And I remember like that golf tournament where we're talking to Lindholm, and I remember thinking like, I don't know if this is going to go.
It's not a vote of confidence.
I don't not vote confidence at all. Well, strangely enough, I felt more confident about Hanifin staying because the way that he handled all of those avails, he at least expressed being open to staying in Calgary, which, I mean, in the end, he ends up going to Vegas. But like, I think the way that he handled it was a lot more hopeful and promising.
There was less drama.
That's it.
I think it was like the conversation in the fall was like, can you get to his number to keep him?
That's it.
And if you don't, you have to trade him. It wasn't like he won't sign here. It was like, it's going to take a lot. And I think he ended up getting essentially the same number with the built-in Nevada tax difference from Vegas anyway. So
being on a contending team also helps too.
Yeah, it made sense. And it's funny. He was in the situation in the new year of that season that Rasmus is right now.
Yes.
Where it's like, it's clear that they're going to part ways.
Yes.
If they were going to match numbers, they would have done it already.
Yes.
And he stated one preference, and his stated preference was Tampa Bay, which was like interesting. So that's how in Calgary, we were talking about Isaac Howard years ago. Now in Edmonton, they just learned who he is. But like that was their number one prospect at the time. So you're like, man, like Tampa's traded the first. If they're trading him Tampa, who are you going to get?
Yeah.
But he ends up going to Vegas. Lindholm, they get a nice haul for. Tanev goes to Dallas, and it was just like, yeah, you're rebuilding now.
Yeah, it just even hearing that they still wanted to be competitive and them not to use the R word, and you're thinking, okay, it's a retool, but also like the way the players handled that too. Like I remember like Nazem Kadri at the end of that last year being like, you know, I don't want to be in a position where we're like trying to get a top 10 pick like next year. Like I want to give a damn. Like there's this, I still thought it was like this fascinating balance where you have all these guys who are on your team who still clearly want to be competitive, but you want to still be better and get these young players opportunities in the lineup. And Craig Conroy kept touting the Dallas model, which was the Dallas Stars had like one really great draft class where you get Jason Robertson, you get Miro Heiskanen and Jake Ottinger, and you're hoping that you're able to accumulate all these young players on the fly while you're still being like a competitive and a good team. Yeah. And I mean, we haven't seen that yet. The Flames are nowhere near the level of contention that Dallas is right now. They don't have the same level of players that they're at. But
they're missing Robertson and Heiskanen, and they might have an Ottinger.
They might have an Ottinger. I like Dustin Wolf. They might have I mean, you know what? I'll be hopeful. I think Dustin Wolf has shown that he could be a number one in this league. I think last year was pretty evident of that. And you see where it goes from there the year after that and the year after that. But like, you still need some star players. And I mean, I'm sure we were going to get to that at some point, but like the Flames, they needed that. But for them to go through that last year where they gave Connor Zary a chance because he was playing really well in the
That
AHL.
was one of the great stories. Sharon Govich, I think, got 30.
Yeah.
Possibly, you're like, look at this POS. Everyone hates playing against them. That's a piece.
They wanted Matthew Coronado to take that step, and maybe it was a little, maybe not premature, but like he needed more time. He needed more seasoning
to go to the A that
in
year.
the AHL. And I think it ended up working out for him.
Yeah.
But like the fact that this team was willing to give young players a chance was a complete 180 from what we were experiencing with Darryl Sutter, because he wasn't necessarily going to give those players that same opportunity. And I think a lot of guys in that room like appreciated the fact that like they were giving those young players a chance and they made them faster. They were slow at the beginning of the year. And then Connor Zary like helped their transition game. Like he passed Bosswhistle too, just being a bugger, just like getting into scraps with guys and just being an energy guy that they needed in that middle six. Like he did really well for them. But also we have to talk about the guys at the top end too, where like Kadri played well. But do you remember Huberdeau had that 1 month where he had like 1 point?
December. Oof. That was rock bottom. It didn't get worse than that.
I will always give Huberdeau credit where the tenure he's had in Calgary has not gone to his expectations at all. But at least when I was here, whenever we wanted to talk to him about things being bad, he didn't duck from us.
Yeah.
I will always give him credit for speaking to us, even though stuff was not going great. Like he talked to us near the end of that month when he had not gotten a point. And I remember writing about that. And like, I mean, he was up front. He was like, yeah, like I wish things were better and things kind of suck right now. I think he got a point like right after that game. And he ended up playing like one of the best stretches of his time in Calgary. He was picking up points every other night. He still ended up with fewer points than he did in his first year. But I think that December month had a reason why. But I think that ended up being a turning point for him where he was like, you know what? Like I got to dial into the style they want me to play and just try to take some pressure off of myself. Like I think that
a good player this year.
He did.
And I think you're right. It was the second half of that season he started to play. And he and Ryan Huska had figured out how it was going to work for him. And like he's killing penalties, he's using his body, he's not doing the neutral zone backhand sauce. Like he was playing direct, straight line, less east-west, but effectively. Like he's not a top line $10.5 million winger that's going to get 100 points ever again. But they've turned him into a good second line winger, which was much better than a month with 1 point in December. 2 seasons ago.
That was just I feel for him. Like I he needs to be better. And he's not the 115 point guy that he was before. But again, I will always give him credit for at least like trying to face the music when the opportunity was pulled upon him to do so with us.
Let's look at the Flames lines. I sent them to Jack, and this is heading into the 25-26 season. Obviously, like they've did very little in free agency. They essentially are running back the same crew. The big development last year, Matt Coronado looks like an elite finisher. I would swap him and Zary in this instance. That's kind of how things finished. Zary, Backlund, Coleman's a very nice checking line.
Yeah.
The third line is the like question mark box, like what's behind the hidden door. We don't really know what Frost is. He looks like a checking center at this point, but then you're like, he's got great handles and skates. Maybe there's got to be more offense here.
Yeah.
Farabee shot like 2% the last month of the year. He can't be that bad again. And Igor had this incredible roller coaster year where he gets injured early, probably comes back too soon, looks completely ineffective. And in a horrible year, I think he still got to 17, 18 goals because he started playing like himself again. And then you've got like the shit disturbing trio at the bottom, which I'm like,
I don't want to deal with that.
I don't want to play against those guys.
I don't want to deal with Molberg. I don't want to deal with Bosswhistle. I don't want to deal with Klapka.
Yeah.
Do you think Connor Zary is a center?
Not yet. I think he could be potentially, but like the results weren't overwhelming. He got mopped on the dot. And I think when he had a real good chance to do it, he got hurt. Frost comes in, and if there's an injury in the top 9 in terms of centers, I think they put him there, but they have to make a decision on Zary this summer. And look, when this show airs, because we're pre-recording, pull back the curtain. It's Stampede week, but it's not. I think the most likely outcome here is a short-term bridge at lower money rather than the long-term commitment they gave Coronado, because they're asking what you're asking.
Right.
Like, could he be a center? Yeah. Is he best suited to play center? I don't know about that. And like, if you slide him onto one of the final 4 teams that played in the playoffs, is he a center? Well, no.
That's my whole thing, right? Like in the last year I was here, I didn't get that sense that Ryan Huska was married to him being a center. I also just thought with the way that he got deployed, he got a bit of time at center at the end of that last year I was here. But like, I see Connor Zary as a really good winger. I think just with the skill and that skill set of his game. Like, I think if you just put him on a wing with a good line, like, you can still get some good points out of him. I still think he can help out in your transition game with how he's able to carry the puck. It's just, my whole thing with centers is like, I like a young prospect who I look at them and I look at the way they play. I don't have to guess if they're a center.
Right.
For me, if it's like,
if you're asking, he's probably not a center.
That's like a kind of general rule of thumb. And I think for the Flames, like, if you have to press him into center duties, that's fine. That's okay to have that depth. But like, I think his future is on the wing. I think whether you put him on that top line with a Huberdeau and a Kadri, or you put him with Backlund and Coleman, I don't think you hurt yourself putting him in any of those top 9 spots.
Agreed. I'm on the exact same page.
And the face-off point is a good point too. Like, he wasn't
and
that
you're
great
young,
when
you're
I
going to
saw
get
him.
better. But
Yeah.
like, if you're a center, it's like, are you surviving center, or are you like, are there like, oh yeah, watch him do this
Are you
against a
thriving?
top line center in the league? No. And look, he might turn out to be that, and it would be a nice development if he got some reps at center and you're like, shit, he is a center. And now you can open your mind up to like, okay, like maybe Frost's the next Backlund and Zeri's the next Kadri. And then now we just got to, maybe Cole Reshny comes in as a center, or do we still need to draft a top 5 in the draft, number 1C? But there certainly isn't clarity, which is why I think a bridge is coming personally.
Yeah. I think it's probably the right move on that part. But yeah, I still think Connor Zary is a great player, and I think he's a really good get for this team. It's just, I still have questions about where he
and
fits.
that's okay. You need good
That's
wingers.
all right. You got time to figure that out.
Flames
Flames
not
ain't going
23
nowhere.
centers.
Come
right?
on.
You need wingers.
You need depth up and down the middle to get you through the playoffs. So build that up.
The decor, very similar. We don't need to go too deep on it, but they bring back Joel Hanley. It sounds like they took some bigger cuts on other left shot D, but there will be a Zane Parekh in there somewhere. I don't know how often he's going to play and what they have to do left versus right. It's incredible that this group was one of the toughest to score on in the NHL. This is not a big name defense. Rasmus played on a broken leg for over a month. Uyghur eats a lot of minutes, but Kevin Balls emerged as a nice defensive defenseman. Joel Hanley
surprised me. Went
from like press box to top 4 minutes. It was wild.
I was surprised about how effective Kevin Ball was. I remember when the Markstrom trade happened, I was like, really? Like, this is the guy you really want? Like, there was an opportunity maybe for you to get like an offensive prospect. I was wrong. I was one of those guys who was like, yeah, maybe you get Alexander Holtz and you make that trade worthwhile. Yeah. I have no problem saying I was wrong. I think the fact that they have Kevin Ball, who has some size, and you're seeing more and more of those teams who want bigger bodies on their defense. Mm-hmm. Kevin Ball makes a lot of sense for them. And the fact that he's been able to make it work with Rasmus Anderson, that's a top 4 guy for this team.
Yeah, totally. I think they paid him as such. He's been extended.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's now. Would you love to have a big name top pair left shot above him? Yeah, but he's a top 4 left shot defensive defenseman.
Owen Byron.
I don't know if he is that, but if he is that, sure. But Bowen's a weird one for me, because you would have seen him a lot this year covering Ottawa.
A little bit.
Like, that's a really, really toolsy kid who was always a super high-end prospect, but the results aren't overwhelming.
That's true.
He had a great 22 playoffs to Colorado, but you watch Buffalo, you're like, he's talented, but is he a top pair guy?
But also, how much of that has to do with the team around him? Defensemen take years to get to a point where they reach their peak, and you get to see that full set.
You don't see guys start putting up huge numbers that never did, but
true.
I'd understand him being a better defenseman in 3 years than now. I get that.
100% for sure.
Yeah.
And like, I get it. Things could change with the nature of this recording, but like, I mean, if the Flames don't end up getting a Bo Byram, I mean, I think they'll be okay with the way their defense will look. I still think, though, with the bodies they have, like, we'll see what happens with Rasmus Anderson, but I'm surprised with how Ball's been effective for them. Zane Parekh, I'm looking forward to seeing him
dynamic talent. That's something that you don't say often about the Flames organization since the Exodus.
The skill, the shot, the talent, the confidence. For me, with him, it was the confidence that he exuded as a young player, a top 10 player who believes so much in himself, who knows he has to get better in the defensive area, but like, he has so much in his offensive game. Mm-hmm. You plug him into that lineup, you give him that opportunity, he'll give you something. Yeah. And if he has to take his time and develop, like, again, you have time, like, give him every opportunity for him to develop. But like, that's a guy who should be playing in the NHL. That's a guy.
He's not going back to the O, and they haven't fixed that rule yet with the AHL at 19. Sounds like the new CBA will have an amendment.
Yeah.
But this year it's not an option for them.
Yeah.
So he's either going to be with the NHL club or in the O, and maybe there's a World Juniors in there if neither seem to be the right fit. But lots of options for him this year.
Yeah.
You mentioned Rasmus. We talk about him. This is going to come to a head, not unlike the 5 free agents we talked about earlier. It was rumored that Ottawa was very interested in Rasmus Andersson. I understand why. It's a good blue line in Ottawa. There's some really good young players. They've just graduated. They had the Matt Palo, who is this guy that went to 4 Nations because Finland was so dinged up. And you're like, oh, that's actually serviceable guy. But another to push everyone down a slot on the right side would look good on the Ottawa blue line.
Here's the thing, man. I think Rasmus Andersson, if he is healthy, he can contribute to a team. You plug him on a contending team as your second pair right shot defenseman with the mobility that he has offensively. I know his defensive metrics have not looked great in recent years, especially not last year. But I also wonder how much of that has to do with his health. You mentioned it. He played on a broken leg. The year before, his feet was busted. The year before that, he got hit by a car and
in Detroit,
and his back hurt him for a good chunk of that year. This is a guy, at least over the last 3 years, and I'm sure in 22 it was the same thing too. This is a guy who has not played at 100% over the last how many years, and if he gets back at least close to that, and you put him in a situation where you don't need him to be your top pairing guy. Yeah. You shelter a little bit of his minutes. You put him with an effective left shot defenseman, maybe with a little bit of size. You can get some success out of that. I wrote about at least linking Andersson to the Sens because I think it would have made sense to put him on that right side. Because right now the Sens, I mean, with Artem Zub playing with Jake Sanderson, Nick Jensen, who's coming off of hip surgery, the team seems cautiously optimistic that he'll be back for training camp, but it's your hip. We don't know what that could be like.
You'd like to have an insurance policy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And is Nicholas Montempallo going to be your insurance policy? Jordan Spence, who they got from LA, where they didn't have to shell out any prospects or players, they just traded picks to get him. That's a guy who wants a bigger opportunity. And at first I was surprised at how many people were thinking, oh, this is a guy who could play maybe at the top of Jake Sanderson. But in talking to a couple people around the team, that's not as far-fetched as I might have thought it was. So I'm very curious to see what his role is. All that to say, while I think Steve Staios is a guy who likes to, kind of similar to Brad Treliving, where he likes to kind of listen in on everything, I would be a little surprised if they found themselves in the Rasmus sweepstakes. I haven't confirmed if Ottawa is on his no trade. I know there are reports of that. 6 teams.
It would make sense.
I think it would make sense.
If you just play the typical 6, it would be okay, probably Winnipeg, Buffalo.
Yeah.
And then it's smaller Canadian markets that are noisy for some guys get on there. It's not New York City. It's not Chicago. Although Chicago might be on some lists. It's not a low tax area.
No.
But the weather's not a selling feature. You don't get to have a pool in your backyard in the winter.
But if
the team's good.
Yeah, team's good. And Ross has a family. He could go off to find a house in Stittsville and live next to Cabo Costas if he wants to and hang out and just grow his family there. I don't know.
Hang with Kyle.
Hanging out with Kyle Costas.
I don't get that sense about Rasmus, but yeah.
No, but I think if an opportunity presented itself to add Rasmus, I think it made a lot of sense at the time. I wonder now. I mean, Steve Staios seems like he's pretty content with how his team is, but also he likes to keep us on our toes in Ottawa with some of the moves that he's made. When he got Dylan Cousins, that was something that kind of materialized. It was a player he coveted, but that was a deal that materialized within the last day or two of the trade deadline. It was fairly.
Were you surprised by the return? So if people forget, it's Cousins comes in, Norris goes the other way, and there's a second. You're like, oh, well, Ottawa's got to be giving that to what? Buffalo's giving.
Yeah, Buffalo.
The Sabres gonna saber.
Yeah. What's funny about that too is I had written something for The Athletic where we had these trade proposals from fans, and someone suggested a Cousins for Norris trade.
Yeah.
And I was like, that sounds like that makes sense. It just depends on the upside for Cousins. And then lo and behold, that ends up being the base. That ends up being the deal with a couple pieces outside of it. But yeah, I was surprised about the second round pick. And I get it's from 26 from Buffalo, but we don't know where the hell Buffalo's going. That's Buffalo might still be bad. That could still be a late first. And considering the fact the Ottawa Senators will not, as of now, have their first round pick because of what happened at the Evgeny Dadonov thing, that very much could be a late first. Right?
It could be a high first.
Could be a high first.
Yes.
Right?
Buffalo.
Yeah, exactly.
14 years of picking in the top 16.
Yeah. I think that trade it definitely was a shock to their system because Tkachuk, Norris, Pinto, Stützle, Sanderson, all these guys grew up
That
together.
was going to be the core.
That's the core.
Yeah.
And then like we're all at the practice rink moments before everyone's supposed to step on the ice, and a few guys practice among themselves. They all rush out, and we're all like, "What the hell's going on?" And then that's when we learn Josh Norris is getting moved, and like Brady Tkachuk is on TVs crying about it, and like that was his boy. That was a guy like he played with the U.S. national, the U.S. NTP. I probably said the acronym
development team program.
Yeah, the development team program, and like that's a guy he talks to about life, like beyond hockey. Like that's his boy, and he gets to go play in Buffalo now. Like that was a bit of a shock for everybody because like if this team wants to take the next step, they have to find a way to get better players that can, take them to that next level. And Josh Norris is a guy who's able to score 30 goals in this league, but he's also had 3 shoulder injuries and surgeries like on the same shoulder. Like I got the sense from the team that like if there was a way to kind of upgrade at that position, they were going to take it. And lo and behold, they'd get that in Dylan Cousins, who still, I put out a tweet a couple days ago about a couple weeks ago, I should say, about how fans were like already putting him in trade discussions and all that, like trade, like mock trades.
Long term.
He signed long term, 1, and 2, like he's your 2C. He has chemistry with Drake Batherson. Unless you're getting someone like really good, like a lot of fans are like, man, like what if we get Mason McTavish? I'm like, are you flipping
Cousins?
Are you flipping Dylan Cousins to do that? Like that, you really want to do that? Like again, we brought it up earlier. Like you build up your centers, you win in the playoffs down the middle, right? Like I still think there's a lot to tap into with Dylan Cousins, who scored.
He looked really good when he got there.
He did, and I think he kind of slowed down a little bit in the playoffs. But like, I think if he ups his defensive game a little bit, you don't have to think about him too much as your second center. Like you have your Stutz. Think about this center depth: Tim Stützle, Dylan Cousins, Shane Pinto, who is your 3C but can pot 20 goals. That's a really good top 3.
They're all getting better.
Yeah.
Like, no one is exiting their prime. These are guys you expect increasing returns, not 100%. Decreasing returns from. Like, Nazem Kadri, very good player. Michael Backlund, very good player. They're both on the wrong side of 35 as of October. Like, you're not expecting more. It's not like, oh, he's 37. This will be the career. No, they've had their career years.
Come on. I think if you're Ottawa, you hang on to that center depth as long as you can. And then if free agency, maybe next year, you try to see if you can get that scoring winger that puts you over the top, or you make some kind of trade where I would try to preserve that center depth as best as I can. I know people are like, man, like you could put Ridley Gregg in at center. Maybe you move one of those centers up there. I'm like, I like having that luxury. If I'm running a team, I like having that luxury where I have guys in and out of the lineup, Claude Giroux, Ridley Gregg, who can come in and play center if I need. And then like I have my set guys. Because at the end of the day, if I'm winning in the playoffs, I need my centers to be solid.
And you're going to need more than 3. Yeah,
you need more than 3.
Yeah, if you can have the Connors area luxury of leaving a guy in the wing, but if you need a center in a pinch, you got one. Like that's what championship teams look like. They always have more than 4 centers.
Yeah, you can find a scoring. I mean, look, they don't grow on trees. And that's still something that I think for this Sens team going into the new year, like scoring for me is a big question. Scoring, like you talk about the Flames not being able to score that much, like especially I think at 5-on-5, the Flames might have been like the worst team.
They were until like the last 2-3 weeks. I think they had a 6-game heater jack to finish the year and like lose a tiebreak for the playoffs. It was crazy.
Well, like the Sens and the Flames at 5-on-5 were one like right near each other in that point.
So probably 28, 29, 30.
Something like that. Yeah. They need to up that. Yeah. Which like a lot of it, like a lot of people think like, oh, like the way they play defense, maybe that traded away some of that offense. And maybe there's some truth to that. But to get to a point where like, man, like Tim Stützle needs to shoot the puck more. Brady Tkachuk, I mean, obviously from the Four Nations had to deal with his injury stuff. Like I think that plays a role in that too. But like, I was surprised with the talent they had. They weren't scoring as much.
Hey guys, it's Pinder. All throughout the year, Village Honda brings you the Pinder Report for the latest in what's happening in the sports world and maybe the odd crocodile and snake. But today we are at your dealership for life in the Northwest Auto Mall. Let's see what's happening at Village Honda. A reminder, if you're selling your vehicle, Village Honda, your dealership for life, wants to pay you. 24 hours, cash in your hand. You don't even have to buy a new one here, although I think you probably should. Village Honda, your dealership for life, online at villagehonda.com and in the Northwest Auto Mall. It's not easy to please everyone, but I know one place that does. That's Greta. Greta Bar in Calgary on 10th Ave is the place to be, whether it's live music, hundreds of arcade games. We're also talking global street food, happy hours, industry days, corporate parties. It's the one-stop shop for all things fun, young or old, 18 plus. You got to go to Greta Bar. For more information and all the good times, head to gretabar.com.
Origin Malting and Brewing. Great partners. We've got the Barn Burner Blonde. We've got the Afterburner Pale Ale. And you know what? I was trying to remember the details. I was calling it. See, there it is. Get ready for it. It's the birthday weekend. Hard to believe it's only 8. Well, it's the 8th annual birthday party. Maybe they've been around longer. Maybe just been celebrating for 8 years. Either way, it don't matter. Friday, August 1st. Let's go. The tent party outside the original tap room in Strathmore. Cold beer, food trucks, live music. They've got 4 live performances, including the headliner, Drew Gregory. I was there last year and I think the year before. It's can't miss, people. It's on during Strathmore Rodeo time. $25 for pre-sale tickets for 4 bands. And the food's there. You're going to have to pay for the food, right? Come on now. And the beer is there. And you're going to have to pay for that too. But it's a lot for your $25. All right. Scan that QR code. You can get them at the door. You can go to originbrewing.ca. It's an Origin summer, folks. God, I love it. Origin Malting and Brewing, great sponsors of Barn Burner.
Outdoor.dental is dentistry with no drills, no needles, and no stress. Yeah, it's one of the most cutting-edge dentistry places around. But on top of that, they have the Soleil laser, which helps with dentistry, but also a snoring treatment. 2 pain-free 15-minute sessions, and you can tighten the soft palate in the back of your throat, which leads to snoring and hopefully reduce your snoring significantly. It's worked for me a ton. I'd recommend you do it as well. And if you've got extended health benefits, might be covered for most of that as well. Sleep better. Get a person next to you can sleep better. It's a win for everyone. Check in with Dr. J at outdoor.dental for all your dentistry and snoring cure needs. And we're back with more Barn Burner. How was watching the ownership change? Because Eugene Melnyk passes, the daughters hold it, but it's clear they're going to sell it. And, they still hold a small piece, but it was like, okay, the Sens are going to find a new owner. And then Michael Andlauer comes in and it's like, he's not don't see him, don't hear him. He's on TV. He's talking. He's saying things that maybe the commissioner doesn't love, especially regarding that first round pick that they've docked for the no trade list mishap before he even bought the team.
Yeah.
What's he like? And when you're in that market, how do people talk about those two regimes, the Melnyk to the Andlauer?
Yeah, I think there are people who recognize what Eugene Melnyk meant to the team with them being a thing.
He probably lost a lot of money along the way before he made a lot of money.
For sure. But I think people realize at the end of that just the drama that followed the team, it was just too much to bear, especially in those years where they weren't making the playoffs. Yeah. And then you get Michael Andlauer, who I think of him as this guy who is so much more. It's hard for me not to think of the Calgary times here because Murray Edwards is a guy I saw, like, whenever I'd see him like walking around the dome, it's like Bigfoot. I probably saw him like a total of like 2 times, like while I was here in Calgary. Yeah. Michael Andlauer is a guy who, like, sometimes at practices, like, you'll see him there and like he'll walk around, he'll say hi to different people in the media. He's the most accessible owner I've ever been around. Yeah. And he does not like being called a billionaire, even though he is a billionaire. And I get this perception from him where even if he's in the situation where he knows he's going to be among the have-nots as this salary cap grows, where some of the bigger, higher spending teams are going to spend a lot of money, they're going to find ways to bring free agents over, and it's going to be a bit of a tougher sell. I get the sense that he does care about that team. And I get that sense that, like, the employees in that organization, they like him, they vibe with him. The one thing I'm curious about with Michael Andlauer is what is the stuff he says, like the way he talks about wanting that first round pick back, the way he went at the way he went at media, not even media, the way that he was upset about the Brady Tkachuk trade rumors and accusing the Rangers of soft tampering. Yeah. Like, as a media person, I love the fact that Michael Andlauer will
great.
make himself accessible and will say whatever and will drum up a headline. And I genuinely appreciate that. And I get the sense from him that he wants to make himself that for media and also for fans to know him and not just be the silent guy.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, you're on the tightrope of like talking. Is it going to get to a point where you fall off and then you peel back a little bit, or someone tells you to peel back?
So you said you overstepped a little bit, and now Gary gives you a spanking, and you don't hear from Andlauer for a while.
That's it, right? Like, yeah, like I don't want to talk about this first round pick stuff.
I'm done talking about that.
I'm done talking about all that. Like, I want to behave. He does that to us. He's like, yeah, guys, like I want to behave here. I want that, like, because it's clear they want that first round pick back. Obviously,
that's silly. Like, I think even the Devils got the Kovalchuk pick back.
They got their first round pick back. They got it. It was like the last pick of the draft.
Yeah.
And I think if the NHL wants to bring that pick back, I see a situation where it would
plunk
be
it at
like
32.
that. You plunk it at 32, and the Sens still get a first round pick, and everyone gets to wipe their hands clean of all
Move
of this.
on.
We all move on.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, when we asked Gary Bettman about that a couple months ago, he said it was not a punishment that he took lightly.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and the thing with the New Jersey Devils punishment too, they got docked a whole bunch of other stuff, and that first round pick was well into the future.
Right.
So whereas for the Sens, they had to give up a first round pick within like 3 years, and they decided, all right, that 26 is leaving. So if the NHL says, all right, well, we're giving you a pick back, like maybe that's a different situation. I think, like, because that point, the one thing you were taking away from them, you found a way to give back.
Okay.
So I think there is some of that. But Andlauer as a guy, like the players like him. Claude Giroux called him, like, he said he was like comparable to Ed Snyder, what he was like in Philadelphia and how much he cared.
He's a hands-on owner, right?
He's a very hands-on owner.
He's competitive and wants to win, which everyone does. But when as a fan base here that doesn't see the owner, like, I don't know that you can find Murray Edwards talking on the record about the Flames.
No.
It is neat to see, like, hey, this guy that happens to have a lot of money really does care about winning and is just like us, that, like, you know, is mad at the league for this. And you can see he's part sports fan, and that's of course why he spent $1 billion on the Sens.
Yeah, he very much, like, he bought the team and he's like, all right, I'm gonna be a fan of this team and I'm gonna be all about Sens culture. I get that. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see how it plays out with
still the honeymoon, right?
I think there's a little bit of that. Yeah, it's still very much early days, but also the fact that they made the playoffs helps.
Yeah, big time. I think it's a team in the right direction, and
I'm inclined to think so too.
That division's been a real tough nut when you look at, you know, Toronto just stacks 100-point seasons together. Playoff success, a different story. Just to get in, you got to be better than them. Tampa and Florida, the finals have run through there for seemingly a decade, it feels like.
Almost a decade.
So you're like, that's tough. There's two of them there. Boston is starting to fall off, but as they are, you're like, Montreal's getting better.
Yeah.
Detroit almost made it 2 years ago. Buffalo can't be this bad forever. Well, maybe they can. But, like, the division, it's finally starting. You're starting to see, I guess, a bit of a shift at the powerhouse, because it used to just be those four contenders every year: Toronto, Boston, and the Florida teams. And then it's like, yeah, well, maybe you get a wild card, but you're not good enough.
Yeah, I think Ottawa's still in that point where they're competing for a wild card. And I think even after they got eliminated by the Leafs in the first round, they were like, you know what, man, like, these teams in the division we're in, speaking as in the perspective from the players, like, they know they're going to find ways to get better. Yeah. I look at what Montreal did, where they get themselves Noah Dobson, and I think that's a team that, I mean, they might also be in that wild card spot too, but, like, they clearly took steps to try to be better.
Demidov and Hudson, like, that feels like you added 2 stars in the last year.
Man. Yeah. Like, to see the stars on that team and how fans are vibing around them. Nick Suzuki also being like an 80-point player on that team. Like, they got players. If they figure out a way to defend consistently, that's a playoff team. Like, you don't have to worry about. But I think, like, this year coming, like, still some growing pains maybe for them to go through, but maybe they take this giant step that no one sees coming. And if you're the Ottawa Senators, where you have a solid core, I don't know, like, I feel like at least in the regular season, you gotta be mindful of how the Montreal Canadiens are. But I also think with how the Sens are and the core that they've accumulated and the style they want to play, I think they have a bit of an advantage on the Canadiens still. But I think if you're the Sens, yes, you're going around and be like, hey man, we want internal growth to kind of carry our guys in our core. But, like, that's why I think there needs to be that emphasis on scoring.
They will.
They could if they. I mean, they have salary cap flexibility, which is really important to them. I don't think we should ever rule out the Ottawa Senators for stuff like that.
Great chatting, Puck, with you.
Always.
Love that. But there's lots of other stuff I want to touch.
Yes.
You got a book coming out in February. That is a long way away. You can pre-order it now, Amazon, Indigo. It'll be at the independent bookstores, I'm sure.
Yes.
It's called Black Aces, Essential Stories from hockey's Black Trailblazers. And there's some really principal characters that cut their teeth and were stars and predominantly had the peak of their careers here in Calgary.
Yeah. Like Jerome McGinley, for me, like he was the first person I approached about this book project, and I never felt more terrified in my life asking someone if they wanted to do anything. And when he was like, yeah, like I'll be interviewed for your book, I was just like, all right, phew, like thank God. Like
this book's a whole lot easier when you talk to Jerome.
Yeah. And the fact that he was willing to provide a forward too, like that was really awesome as well. But yeah, I wanted to put together a project just kind of highlighting select Black players, men's players, female players, and also some names that you might not have heard about. People like Blake Bolden, who does great work on Amazon, but also played in the NWHL. Kelsey Kolzler, who's like the first Black player, male or female, to ever be drafted first overall in a North American draft, or Dante Abercrombie, who in 2026 is going to start his hockey program with Tennessee State. Cool. The first time we're going to see a men's hockey program at an HBCU. Like I wanted that mix of
HBCU,
like,
just so people understand,
historically Black college university. Yeah. Like there are those stories, but like you're getting Jerome McGinley, and you're getting like so many people. Of all the people I profiled for that book, like so many people in and around the league, whether you're media, whether you're players, they had so many great things to say about him. I have a cousin who lives here who told me a story. He didn't make the book, but like he lived in a part of town where unfortunately he had lost his home in a fire. And I hope I'm not telling the story wrong, but like I think his mom worked for the Aginlas, and they might have been a maid or something. And then like as they were getting back on their feet, like Jerome like sent like a barrel of like clothes and stuff like that. Like Jerome as a human being, as a guy, is like one of the nicest people you could be around. And on the ice, he is, I'm going to quote Drew Daddy when I say this, he's an absolute prick. It's just, but he's an icon. He's a legend. But also for so many people, particularly like of my age growing up, who you watch hockey, we all live in this country, we all live in Canada, and we all appreciate the sport for what it is. But you see a lot of guys who look like Pinder, and you're like, all right, I don't see myself. But then you see Jerome McGinley, and you're like, wait a minute, like this dude can score 50 goals. Like this dude's playing for Team Canada. Like that means something to people. And to have people like Jerome McGinley, to have people like Grant Fear, who only played the year in Calgary, but like that meant a lot to a guy like Freddie Brathwaite, who a lot of Flames fans really enjoyed.
We love Freddie, man.
They loved him in this market.
And like I know his brother does some community work for I think the Canucks Foundation or something like that. I've met him, but like the nicest guys you could meet.
Super nice,
incredibly friendly. And Freddie saved them in a year where someone had a voodoo doll of the Flames goaltending. It was just like boom, 1, 2, 3, 4. You went like 5, 6, 7 goalies deep that year. Like my buddy Tyler Moss got a look that year.
Tyler was great for that.
That might have been a Tyrone Garner year too. Like there was so many guys that got a sniff. And then finally with Freddie, you're like, this guy can actually stop the puck. This is incredible. We got a goalie. We found a goalie.
And he was like a really cool guy that the team wanted to build around for like a community aspect. Like it's one thing to have a guy who's like a Ned who's kind of cool, but it's like, whoa, like Freddie Brathwaite, like he's this cool, likable athlete. And also he's Black. Like if you're a young guy, like again, like me, like growing up, like you don't see a lot of guys who look like yourself in that sport. All of a sudden you're like, holy crap, like there's a guy who looks like me who's playing really well. I want to be like that guy. I want to take up the sport. And like Freddie Brathwaite has like a cool story, like coming up from Nepean and Ottawa and playing well in the OHL and be on a Memorial Cup team and eventually get to a point where he's an NHL goalie. Like that opportunity comes from in Calgary where he's like hanging out with Tyler Moss. And it's like, damn shit, we need a goalie. And he ends up being pressed to the service and it works out. Like he's a guy who I really enjoyed writing about him and telling his story in the book I wrote. So I'm really happy that he's in that book.
How does it work? I imagine the first book you've written.
First book I've written, yeah.
And like, was it exhausting? Was it easy to do? Did you have to like book 2 hours a day to do it? Was it like, no, in the summer I'm going to go hard at this? Like you're dealing with a publisher, you've probably got an editor. There's all kinds of weird timelines. Like for me, it's a nightmare. I would procrastinate to the last minute and be like, I didn't do the book.
Oh my God, no. That was something I did like throughout. Like I got approached about writing a book by my agent Brian Wood, August 2023 or September 2023. It was right after the story broke about Bill Peters coaching the WHL, and I wrote about that. And they asked me if I would be interested in just writing something about race in hockey and the idea kind of came to me just like looking at what people like William Douglas do for NHL.com, where they have a blog called Color of Hockey, and they write about stories of Black people and POCs just doing great things in the sport. And there have been other people who have tried to do what I've done, essentially, where they highlight a couple players, but like in the early 2000s, like the pool of Black players who were prominent enough to write about it was like much smaller. But like now that number has like grown. Like I mean, older guys like a Joe McGinley or an Anson Carter or a Grant Fuhr, but then you have guys now like a Quentin Byfield who's in the book. Like he's a great example of someone who current generations now can look at and be like, wow, that's someone I want to be like, right?
And he
like,
could look up to guys. Like you can see how it feeds off itself, right?
That's it, right? Like it was cool to get that opportunity to like when I had what I thought was, you know what, maybe that would work. And then I want to say like around the time when the Flames were in Edmonton for the outdoor game, they had a big event unveiling a stamp commemorating Willie O'Ree.
Yeah. And
I thought, well, you know what? There's all these people here who I wanted to talk to for my book. Like Josh Lahak was there. Sarah Nurse was there. Anson Carter was there. There were a lot of people I wanted to talk to for that. Grant Fuhr was there too. And I kind of got the ball rolling with them and just tried to remember that scene too. It's funny, like as that process was going on, I thought, oh yeah, cool. I want to talk about like some of those guys like Jerome and all that. But I'm like, I can't really do this book without writing about Willie O'Ree, right?
Yeah.
So he's
you
like
gotta start at the beginning, right?
Yeah, he's at the beginning. But also I want people to know the story of Herb Carnegie too, because that's a guy who his chapter's right after Willie's, and people don't know who he is, but that's a guy who should have been Willie O'Ree before Willie O'Ree was a thing. For context, like Herb Carnegie played like obviously years before Willie O'Ree was a thing, played like semi-pro, was like super talented, and is seen as like the best Black player to never make it into the NHL
because of society.
Yeah, there's a story that I read about in the book, and Elliot Friedman actually interviewed him about it, where I forget which decade it happened, but he's playing at the Toronto Gardens, and he's on this like young like team, and Conn Smythe of the Maple Leafs is like sitting in the stands, like looking at him practice with his team. And like one of his coaches like goes over to Herb, and he's like, you know, if someone could find a way to like turn you white, like we'll put you on the team like tomorrow. Like you're that good. And like if someone could, or like it's either like there's two versions of that story where it's either if someone just turns you white, like we'll put you on the team tomorrow, or like someone will get paid $10,000 if they could find a way to turn Herb Carnegie white. And if you go on YouTube, you could find the interview where Elliot Friedman talks to Herb Carnegie. Herb brings that up, and he is visibly emotional. He is visibly distraught. It is something that affected him, and it's something that like it broke him. It tore him, and he ended up having to go through this pro career where he's dominating at all these levels. He plays with like Jean Beliveau for a little bit in Quebec, and he doesn't get that opportunity. In Jean Beliveau's book, sorry, I should say in Herb's book, Jean Beliveau writes the foreword, and he's like, why didn't this guy get a shot? And funny enough, while he's playing up in Quebec, and actually I think in Timmins, Ontario, this happens, he ends up on a line with his brother and another guy, Manny McIntyre, and that's seen as like the first all-Black line, and they call them the Black Aces. Yeah. So like it's funny, like people look at the name Black Aces, and you're like, yeah, like there's all these cool players, but like Herb Carnegie, like you don't get Black Aces without him, and you don't get guys like Willie O'Ree and Val James and Mike Marson without what Herb was able to do, and also the Colored Hockey League, but also like Herb Carnegie especially. So I hope people read those stories too, even if they're of names that they wouldn't necessarily think of or recognize, and they come away learning something.
It's a really good point, because like everyone knows the Jackie Robinson, Willie O'Ree stories, but it's only stories if guys weren't being allowed in.
That's it, right?
So it's like how many guys could have been that guy? Like at some point there's a tipping point, whether it's an owner or society or a city saying enough's enough. But yeah, like that's why they're big names, because before them, it wasn't fair.
It wasn't fair, and people weren't letting them in, man. But yeah, it was an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to do that project. And I know there are people who have been asking like, oh, yo, so like, where's this guy or where's that guy? Even if there isn't like a chapter dedicated to certain players, I tried to make sure that like there's different stories or moments mentioned with them, so that way like they can read through and be like, oh yeah, well yeah, right, Mike Greer is like a GM. He's the first black GM in the NHL.
Looks like
of
a
course
good
he's
one,
got
too.
he's great. Yeah, he's looking pretty good.
Is he a Harvard guy? Like, is he not like
He's a
Ivy
Boston.
League?
He's a Boston University guy.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's got a sharp brother that I think works in the NBA as a GM too. It's
NFL,
wild.
Chris Greer.
NFL, yeah, there you go.
But also like his whole family, like his dad and all that, like they've worked in like player personnel and like management positions. Like that's a whole family thing for the Greers, right? And it's so cool to see a guy like Mike Greer not only just be a GM, but also it seems like he's getting some success getting young players for that San Jose Sharks team. But I tried at least as best as I could, even if I didn't have a chapter dedicated to Mike Greer, like I tried to make sure that like he's in the book, and I got people to talk about him and like just kind of make sure that his exploits are there. I just hope people read it and they learn something about some of the guys I profiled in that book.
Oh, and guys we loved growing up, like great players. And also you can leave some for the sequel, I'm sure, because there's no new ideas. We just do sequels apparently.
Yeah, you know, I hope people who whenever I decide to release the names of people who are going to be there, they start tweeting at me being like, why don't you put this player? I ask that you tweet at Triumph Books and say, hey, do a second book.
We need more. That's an incredible project.
Thank you,
you know, you're 31, you've accomplished a lot.
Yeah.
It's wild, and it was just a kid that wanted to cover sports growing up in Montreal. Incredibly cool that we got to cross paths in Calgary. I'm glad you're back in your free time. You're not forced to be here. You're choosing to come back to Calgary.
I like Calgary as a city. I know there were people who were probably like upset when I left because they were like, oh, this guy clearly saw Calgary as a stepping stone. He didn't give this city a chance.
I did. I really liked it. It's just circumstances got to a point where it's like, no, like I'm an ambitious person and I want to progress in my career. And there was an opportunity for me to do that.
Yeah.
But Calgary as a city, the people here, I love this city. And I think that to have had that opportunity to be a part of the media market, to have gone along with as many people as I did, yourself included, like I appreciate the fact, Pinder, that like when I came into this market and, you know, we'd have a little back and forths online, but like it was always respectful. And also that's a way for me to get embedded in the culture here. Cause like I could have easily just shown up here and you guys could have easily just been like, well, we don't give a damn about this guy. Like, who cares? Like, we're going to put him off to the side. But no, I felt you guys and Piker and Steinberg and so many other people were really welcoming here. And that really meant a lot for me as a younger guy, just like trying to make a name for myself. So that really means a lot. You guys are really great.
Appreciate that. Tell us about the CJ show, because Chris, I've had not a ton of interactions with, but enough to know he's a great guy. He's incredibly kind with his time.
Yeah.
And he's got a sneaky little sense of humor as well. He was like chubby insider turned marathon runner. He's had like all these different chapters, and he's got a bunch of pals out here in Calgary. He speaks highly of the city. I always love running into him. It's a great guy.
I love CJ, man. I love working with him on that show.
It's something that I don't consider to be work. I consider it to be something really fun and really amazing. And I get it. We live in a world where 32 Thoughts exist and like people go to that show. And hey, shout out EF and shout out Kyle. Like those guys are great.
Good show. Yeah.
But I also appreciate the fact that like CJ knows stuff too. And we've done shows for 4 seasons now. We have our dynamic and we have a lot of fun whenever we can. And people love us, man. People like our show. We have our 100%ers and stuff. And
I've seen you do some live shows, big crowds, things like that. That's cool.
People show up, man. People pull up.
And to work with a guy like CJ, who, as far as I'm concerned, like if you were to put everyone at the Athletic like on a depth chart, like how we do like hockey style, he's a first line player.
He's your 1C.
He's your 1C. He's your 1C or your 1 LW, whatever. But he has like a third liner mentality where he feels he needs to continue working hard to keep taking that next step. He's not satisfied. He's somebody who he lives, breathes, eats the sport, and knows so much about the game. And my job is to just, you know, make sure that he shares as much of his intel with as much of us as we can. And like, I just appreciate the fact that he's so kind with his time. And I've leaned on him for guidance and mentorship at different times too. And I like that through the podcast, it isn't just like a professional relationship where we do the podcast on Riverside and then we go on with our ways. Like when we see each other in person, you know, we give each other dab, we hugging each other. We've had drinks with each other. And he's somebody who I think highly of a lot. And I told him when they asked me to do that show, like that show's going to change my life. And that show has changed my life in more ways than I can imagine. So like CJ's show for me is like, I love that show with every fiber of my being.
That's rad. We encourage you to check that one out. It's a ton of fun, and you guys, you can feel the rapport. Like it's good stuff there,
man. And
it's like Boom and Rhett and I, right, Jack?
Well,
Like
no,
just
but
best friends doing a show together.
You guys. Here's the thing, man. You guys deserve your flowers too, because like, you know, as someone who is an outsider and getting to know you and Boomer and I mean, I didn't really get to know Rhett that well, but like seeing you guys do shows together, like the dynamic works perfectly. There's a reason why fans gravitate to you guys and watch your content and love everything that you do. You guys are really great together. And the fact that you've built up this platform through Flames Nation and have achieved the success that you have, that's not something that was done overnight. That's something you guys worked hard at doing through your other stops as well. And the fact that you have achieved the success that you have, you should be proud of yourself for that. So I always appreciate you guys being cool, and I always appreciate your show, and I still follow it from afar. So you guys deserve your flowers, and it's really cool to see what the network has become and what you guys have been up to with the show. Like I'm really happy for you guys.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it. Great to have you back in town. A pleasure for you to stop by. Can't wait for the book to come out.
God.
Jerome was the most popular Flame of all time. And before the book drops in Feb, we'll get you back on to talk about it.
Man.
Obviously, the stories are important, but you also have included the greatest Flame of all time, which that'll move the needle here. So we'll do it again.
Yeah, man. And I'll make sure y'all get copies, man. I want to make sure. I want that bookshelf. I want that bookshelf to have that. To have that book.
We got room.
We got room.
Some of us can read even beyond a grade 3 level. So I hope there's not too many big words.
Oh, man. I want to make sure that book is there, man. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks for being here, Julian. Appreciate it. All the best in Ottawa this year.
Yeah, man. All the best to you in Calgary. And thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.